welcome everybody. I hope you're having a great day so far. I hope the sun is shining where you are right now. My name is Andy Fraze. I'm a sales manager at CDW Canada. Masood, who couldn't be there, does report to me, and in lieu of him not being here, I've taken on his haircut, in the interim. So again, thanks for your time today. Excited to bring to you our CDW and HPE webinar on automating the data center through AI. So just a couple housekeeping notes. All the attendees will be on mute, but if you want to ask a question, feel free to put it in the Q&A box down below. We're more than happy to take questions, throughout the presentation. So if you want to ask a question, put it in there. I'll be the one who will be asking the question, so make it as difficult as you need to be, and we'll I'll stop the presenter through the at the appropriate time, and we'll try to make it as interactive as possible and have it be a conversation. So again, really happy that everyone had time today to join us. Again, very excited about the partnership between CDW and HPE and what we're able to bring to Magna. So again, without further ado, I will hand it over to Mike Longcar, who is a storage sales director at HPE. Mike, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Just to check, can you hear my voice okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and I'd like to kick off by saying thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I'm sure that in these times, webinars of all sorts are being thrown at you, so taking time during a lunch hour means a lot. So thank you for that, and thank you to the CDW team for the gracious invite. The star of the hour is going to be my colleague Gaurav, who will be walking you all through really why intelligence matters, why InfoSight and AI can help Magna. As by way of introduction and just to kind of get us kicked off here, as Andy mentioned, I'm a sales director for HPE Storage here in Canada, 19 years with the company. Today's call brings me back to one of my first gigs at HPE was in our personal systems side, selling end user devices, PCs, laptops, thin clients. And one of my very first customer calls ever was driving up to Aurora to go make a call on Magna. So I feel like I've been transported back to 2001 here. So thanks again for the time. Gaurav, if you have my slides there, if you don't mind, show them, or maybe I'm just not seeing them.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear and see the slides?
Yes. I'll just give you a little nudge, please, if you don't mind, since you're driving on the next slide. You can go to the next slide. So folks, you can go to the next one as well. I put together one more, please. I put together one or two slides. I really want to talk to everybody about this. Really kind of gets us going. Why intelligence matters. If you listen to any corporate presentation all the way down through our reps and our partners like CDW, we preach why intelligence matters, why we made a couple of key acquisitions in the last several years to set up some of the major pillars for HPE, which is about simplicity, automation, and giving customers like yourselves insight into their data so they can take action. That simplicity and automation facing our clients like yourselves happens with a whole ton of complexity behind the scenes. And how that intelligence is derived really matters. And this is what I believe truly separates HPE from a lot of our competition. And those who have already embarked upon HPE solutions are actually having the capability of having this intelligence at their fingertips today. One of the better kept secrets. Next slide, please. Why we bought a company called Nimble, going on 3+ years now, if memory serves me correctly, was not because it's a great storage array, was not because it was a great price out in the market, was not because it was highly competitive versus our major competition. It was because they have a significant leg up on helping customers along that path to autonomy in the data center, allowing people like yourselves on this phone call the ability to go and generate more business outcomes, helping IT enable the business, enable the lines of business within your corporation to act faster, to be more predictive, to help act upon the data and market shifts, not unlike what we're seeing out there in the world today. Next slide, please. Here's the path and here's the journey. So Nimble Storage 2010, if we think about the trillions, and I said that correctly, trillions of data points being collected in the field with every single Nimble storage array, how we've been able to package that up and predict and prevent incidents, predictive support leads to a recommendation engine, which leads to the ability to automate. If you don't have those trillions of data points, how can you effectively do that? How do we resolve the usual support call, which is something has gone slow or something has gone down? Usually go blame the storage guys, right? This is the enabler and the key reason why the Nimble acquisition happened. That InfoSight engine, that predictive support, as you can see here, the evolution. Typically what happens in a large corporation, we buy a company and then it gets absorbed into the culture of the corporation like HPE. In all my time in the 19 years, I would say this is almost a reverse of what's happened. See Nimble Storage and the capability within InfoSight, and it's done the exact opposite. Look at what happened starting in 2018 and up to and including today. The entire HPE portfolio is on a path to have InfoSight turned on so as to deliver truly cross-stack analytics, to be able to pinpoint where, why, predict and prevent why issues are happening, not just at the storage layer, not just at the compute layer, all the way up through and including to the application layer. That's the type of automation and intelligence and why we think it matters, and why HPE has a significant leg up on the competition with respect to the foundation and the building points. Next slide, please. I'll ask you to keep going. So we see the slide with the chart. This is the one. So this is a bit of an eyesore. Hopefully when I describe it, it'll help resonate to what I just described for everybody on this phone call, which is this is a very abnormal view. If you look at the orange line heading up and to the right, this is up to and including March of 2020, very recent data. The orange line going up and to the right is the number of units of Nimble in the field. As you would expect, right? Doing well, great product, great solution. HPE helps enable a wider breadth to be able to get to market globally, and that's the number of units in the field. The purple line is the number of manual cases, i.e. customers like yourselves calling into 1-800 support because of a manual challenge issue that they faced. It's coming down at a greater rate, in fact, than the units are going up. The teal or blue line is actually the one that jumps out to me at this page. When we had virtually no units in the field, the number of manual cases being worked in the field by HPE support was there. Considering the hockey stick movement up and to the right of the number of units, the number of manual cases totally worked has virtually held its line. This is unprecedented in a support matrix. This is unprecedented for anybody who's had to make a 1-800 support call with of vendors, storage products, or for that fact, any portfolio products, and truly a badge of honor around why the acquisition and why InfoSight is key. Next slide, please. And this is where proof is in the pudding. 5 is excellent, 1 is bad. From just looking through the last year or so, overall satisfaction, when you can deliver automation, when over 85% of the time we're sending notes to customers saying, we opened the ticket on your behalf and we've resolved that ticket on your behalf before you even necessarily knew what was going on because it was relatively mundane, or it was an inoculation because we found a similar challenge with the customer in another part of the world who has an array similar to yours, and we could predict and prevent and action that on your behalf, it helps generate scores like overall satisfaction of 4.99 out of 5. So I'll leave the InfoSight Nimble part of this little introduction to you this way. InfoSight, as a subset of one product within the corporation, has morphed into its own business unit, reporting directly into Antonio Neri, our CEO, that has its own set of R&D, that has its own entire organization and team to help take this experience that began with Nimble and ensure that whether it's Simplivity, whether it's anything within our portfolio, has the exact same user experience as we start to collect and correlate all that data across all those data points, across all those trillions of sensors out there, and help accelerate that 4.99 or plus across the entire portfolio. You can go forward, Gaurav, please. I'll leave you with this, how we are evolving this discussion. So this is all the back end. This is all why intelligence matters. Hopefully I've demonstrated that to you all, and Gaurav will walk you through in a lot more detail exactly how that looks from console driven and what you see on your end. Now, what if we could tell you that a Magna entity in location A versus location B versus location C had a lot of correlation, had similar incidents, similar topology, and that we could help you consume that and leverage the economy of scale and that buying power across the entire Magna portfolio. Well, this is what CDW and HPE are working on behind the scenes with corporate, so as to deliver to you all everything we just talked about and consume it like you would a cloud experience. So predict, prevent, but also show me where I'm running into a red zone of capacity or running into a red zone of availability or performance, and be able to predict that and be able to accelerate the procurement cycle, accelerate and manage it as a service. So this is what we refer to marketing-wise as Greenlink, but more importantly, this message is, and this is more of a just context and behind the scenes, as the account team at HPE that you're working with and CDW evolve this discussion, one of the items we look at as hopefully value for people who can hear my voice is this will help truly elevate the economy of scale and looking at Magna as a corporate customer and being able to deliver to you not one-ofs, but truly deliver the breadth of the entire portfolio consumed in a way that would bring it to bite-sized chunks and more aligned to the outcomes you're looking to get from HPE and CDW. So I'll leave it at that. I've spoken a lot there. If anybody has any questions, be happy to take them. But I'm sure as you start to see Gaurav share what he's about to show you, I'm sure more questions will arise. But again, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully that whet everybody's appetite enough. And I'll hand it over to my colleague, Gaurav.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was great. Very nicely put in terms of the impact. I think that's really key. There is what kind of impact that InfoSight has and the intelligent data center it has on customers, and also how it can be consumed. So what we're really trying to do is redefine the experience. And what I'm going to do now is we'll take a level deeper. We'll take it a level deeper. So by way of introduction, I'm Gaurav Sharamani. I'm our hybrid IT chief technologist for the commercial patch. I work very closely with our partners at CDW and some of our solution architects at our partners, and enabling them and helping them carry the HPE message and the actual solutions themselves. And what are some of the, why they're so different? Well, what are some of the differentiators for them? And I think I'm hoping this is something that resonates with you. I know we did a webinar previously. I'm not going to assume you were on that webinar, but what I would ask for you is to keep yourselves open in terms of questions. Please fire away with whatever questions you may have. Feel free to type away in the chat. I like to address the questions as we go. We've got a small group, right? And so I think this is a great opportunity for you to take as much as possible out of this in the next 45 minutes or so. Okay, so please don't hesitate with any of those questions. So this, I think, resonates with you very clearly, right? The need of the digital enterprise today, acceleration, application acceleration, modernization of infrastructure. I don't think there's any secret there, right? At the end of the day, what all of you are looking for, I think, is simplification, right? How can I make my life simpler? And that's what solutions such as Nimble, HPE Simplivity, that's what they're driving here, right? Is simplicity. How do we take away the time from standing up an infrastructure, creating everything manually, and then having separate management portals for everything, and give you a much more simplified user experience? The reality is that's a day one, or actually I should say that's a day zero experience, right? So today's reality is you could stand that up pretty quickly, but then, what you end up doing day one and beyond doesn't really change unless we introduce the intelligence component into it, right? So some of these things that you'll see listed here around firefighting, the pressure to do more, pressure to lower cost, and then going even beyond, when we look at the stack and everything that you're managing, how do we collapse the number of variables that we are actually managing? And by variables, I'm talking about, virtualization, servers, network, storage, all these different components, each having its own performance variables, each having its own management variables. How do we collapse all of that so that it's digestible and something easy for you to solve? Because if it's in a disparate, um, uh, disaggregated, let's say, stack like this, in terms of everything is a separate management portal and nothing is properly integrated, then it becomes far too complex for us normal human beings to solve, which is where the integration component becomes key. And that's also where the hyper-converged experience becomes a key component of it. So when I talk about the hyper-converged experience, what am I talking about? It's essentially these three pillars. It's got to be simple to deploy, right? So as I said, day zero experience, it's wizard-based deployment. I can deploy a cluster within an hour and be almost production ready, right? Um, it's got to be easy to manage. It's got no separate portals. It's a single portal to manage, whether that be integrated into my hypervisor or it be a layer above my hypervisor. But it has to be one portal where I manage the entire infrastructure that includes my hardware components as well. And finally, simple to scale. So that means I can start small, I can grow linearly, right? So I can actually start with 2 nodes and add a node at a time, grow linearly. I can start small in terms of a nimble array and then scale my nimble arrays accordingly. These are the essential components that we're talking about from a software-defined hyper-converged experience. To this, I would also add one-click upgrades. So that means I give you one bundle. You go through the process of a wizard-based process of uploading that bundle, and it updates that entire stack for me. That entire stack that you just saw of all the variables, it updates all of that in one shot automatically in a self-orchestrated way without you having to evacuate your VMs, put those into maintenance mode, put the hosts into maintenance mode, move your VMs around and schedule downtime, etc., non-disruptive updates. This is the core to the hyper-converged experience. And when I look at the hyper-converged solutions in the marketplace today, the tier one solutions, they all do this. So quite level set there, right? Like the tier one vendors for hyperconverged, which includes our HPE Simplivity, as well as our Nimble DHCI, we all try to do exactly this, is deliver a much more simplified experience to make your lives easier. And from our competition as well, this is table stakes, right? This is what we all do. But the unresolved complexity and headaches persist when we go into day two. Okay, so that's where now everything that Mike talked about and the intelligent component of your hyperconverged experience becomes key. And when I talk about, things like application disruptions and delays with reactive operations, constant tuning required to optimize my resources, especially in a virtual environment, when I'm looking at constantly trying to move my VMs around, solve for IO contention, solve for latency issues. These are things that happen in hyperconverged environments as well, unless we introduce the intelligent component to it. And this is where InfoSight and intelligence to the data center becomes so, so key. And that's where you'll see in the need to rethink what HCI should do for you exists. Okay, just having HCI is great, but it's not everything. It needs to be more. It needs to take care of the day two and beyond challenges. So now you're actually automating and orchestrating a lot more of the processes from an application and workload standpoint as well. It's the self-optimization, the self-healing, the automatic case creation that Mike talked about. All of those things that when we talk to the actual infrastructure admins, you know, what is it that's important to them, which is going to really make their lives easier from that day two and beyond. So day one, day zero, day one, the HCI experience, which is table stakes across the board for everyone, that's not enough. You need to think about day two and beyond. And this is exactly where HPE comes in with our artificial intelligence added to our solutions and to our HCI portfolio that includes your Simplivity as well as your disaggregated HCI with Nimble and Compute Nodes. And what this does is it changes the process from a hardware confined, manual, and very reactive situation, right? So what you're experiencing at the hardware level, what you're experiencing with your infrastructure in terms of reaction to, let's say latency, contention issues. Now we are evolving this from a from a hardware confined to a software defined process. So now it's automated, it's efficient, it's on demand, and eventually getting to a point where it's completely autonomous. Okay, and what I mean by that is it's fully self-optimizing. We are already at the stage where you're dealing with predictive failures, predictive maintenance, and self-healing and self-optimizing based on what it predicts. That is an AI-driven HCI solution, and that's what we're delivering here. That's a differentiator. No one else does this. You you can get metrics, you can get data, great. It's not enough to just get the data. It's what am I going to do with that data? What am I going to do? How am I going to react to that data? What are my recommendations in terms of optimizing my environment? Do I need to hire someone to go and optimize that environment, or is this environment going to tell me exactly what I need to do so that it works in a much more efficient manner? That's what an AI-driven HCI solution is. It takes care of not just day zero, not just day one, day two, and beyond. It's got the whole spectrum covered from end to end and truly delivering an autonomous data center for you. Okay, so if I look at the three key tenants, your global intelligence is really served around self-managing, self-healing, and self-optimizing. That's when we achieve the nirvana of a autonomous data center. And that's that's what we want. Self-managing, well, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Um, in terms of management issues, operational issues that come up, it is able to take care of itself. Self-healing is where, again, failures, be it catastrophic failures or simple failures like drive failures, it's able to recover from those failures quickly and efficiently. And self-optimizing is knowing when that failure is going to occur, or better yet, there's no failure that's going to, but it's just, hey, how do I make my environment operate more efficiently? How do I get better performance out of my environment? And then not only giving you a recommendation, but also optimizing your environment to deliver that better performance. So, I think I'll skip through this because Mike covered a little bit about that history anyway. And what we're seeing right now, when we talk about the vision for autonomous operations, I want to make it clear that it's a three-step process, right? So it starts with predicting. How is this environment predicting? And it's basically how it works is I have all this telemetry and this data that gets collected, and what we're doing is, we're uploading all of this data, and this is just sensor-based data. It's nothing else, right? It's sensor-based data that your servers, your storage is already collecting. And what we're going to do is what we're doing is we're taking that data and collecting it and applying machine learning algorithms to that data. So what happens is if a combination of errors occurs in a platform out in, let's say, in a data center in Australia, we here in Canada can learn from that combination of errors, and then it can predict, well, if you're running this combination of software, driver, firmware with this VMware version, this is going to cause a failure here. And then we're going to recommend how we're going to fix that error, right? So that's the second step. It's predicting as well as recommending how to fix that error based on what happened previously. And then finally, the autonomous portion is applying that automatically to give you that full automated data center. So that's the three-step process: predicting, recommending, and then finally making it autonomous. But what's key here is the data that gets collected and used to learn. And if you know the basic concept of machine learning, and I think we're all learning more and more about it nowadays, it gets smarter over time, right? It gets so much smarter over time. In Nimble, we have now got over 10 years worth of data that we have learned from. And this is data collected globally. And so now, predicting scenarios, predicting errors, recommending optimization scenarios out of those errors, that becomes second nature, right? And that's a key component of the vision for IT operations and autonomous data center. So this is how it works behind the scenes. Data gets collected, gets uploaded into InfoSight. InfoSight runs all of those algorithms behind the scenes and is constantly applying those to the data that's collected for your environment. So now you get those recommendations based on how you are actually running your environment. And we do this across that entire data center. Okay, so yes, InfoSight came from Nimble. But I wanted to make it clear, one of the prime reasons we bought InfoSight was so that we could extend it to our entire portfolio. So be it storage, be it servers, networking, we have extended it to our entire portfolio, and we will be extending it even more because this is the key to delivering AI operations for an autonomous data center. It can't be just one component. It has to be that entire data center and all of the hardware inside that data center, okay? And we're the only ones that are able to do that. So let me break out into a quick demo for you to show you a little bit what I'm talking about here. And you will be able to see some of that by yourself. So hopefully you can see my screen. I'm logged into InfoSight right now. I pre-logged in to InfoSight, and what I want to show you are a few components, all right? So I have under my infrastructure here, you can see I have compute with servers. I have storage, a number of storage arrays, my Primera arrays, my enterprise grade Primera and 3PAR, my Nimble storage, my Simplivity, and then from a backup perspective, we have store once in RMC systems. And then finally, this is the cross-stack stuff that Mike had referenced. So we're not only talking about the hardware, but we're taking it that level up. And just recently, we introduced it not just for VMware, but also Hyper-V. So now you're seeing it go all the way up into my data stores, all the way up into my VMs. So what does that mean? Now I can actually go into my VMs and get VM contention, VM information about VM performance, workload performance, and relate that all the way down to my hardware and get the full analytical picture, as well as recommendations from the intelligence engine on how to optimize my environment that's running here. Okay, so you can see this is across my entire portfolio. It's not just one component of it. So let's start real quick by looking at, let's say, one of our Nimble arrays. And I go there because this is the most comprehensive. You'll see we have it in our servers. I'll show you how it works in our servers, but this is probably our most comprehensive. And what you'll see is under dashboards, I have a number of dashboards which I can see as well. Sorry, I should have started with the dashboards, but I want to show you, you can see operational dashboards. You can get an executive dashboard, which will summarize your space utilization, space savings, deduplication, operational efficiencies, and then, in terms of any action items that need to be taken, upgrade needs on the various arrays. This is just a dashboard. Okay, so you get that information in a snapshot, executive dashboard. If we go to an operational dashboard, you'll be able to see from an operations standpoint what needs to be done, how things are doing. If there are any errors that have occurred, you'll be able to see that there as well. Where it starts to get interesting is as you drill deeper, and I'm not going to show you everything, right? This is very extensive in what its capabilities are. But if you go into one of the arrays, you can see exactly how that array is performing, what needs to be done about that array. Here's a summary of the hardware status of that array, usable space capacity, what are the interfaces, and then you can actually go in and see more details about those arrays. Within those arrays, I can actually now even drill deeper into the volumes that I'm running, okay? And once I get into the volume piece, I can now get into the fun stuff, which is actually going to show me the contention issues, the LIO latency issues that may be occurring. I can see them streaming over a period of time. I can see it at a point in time. It's up to me, right? And that's where you start to get some of the beauty of the metrics that start to come through. So I get my IOPS information, any contention issues, what are my throughputs on this volume that are coming through. I can drill down deeper into that area, okay? And I get a summary of my throughput, my performance, my latency, the data protection on this. If I see any spikes, I can actually drill deeper and try to look at what is causing some of those spikes. Okay, and if there are any recommendations that come out of it, those recommendations will be provided to you right here. Okay, so
hey, Gaurav, there's a question from the chat. Will this integrate with third-party storage vendors like EMC or NetApp other than Nimble or 3PAR?
No, it doesn't, right? And this is a proprietary HPE solution, and I can't speak to the roadmap, but today it doesn't. And one of the things what we're trying to do is this is the value add, as I said, for the HPE solutions. Is we're trying to build that intelligence into those platforms. Not that it, not to say that it can't be done, but integrating it into the machine learning algorithms need to know how to interpret the data that comes back from those platforms as well, right? And at the end of the day, there is an API that is associated with this, so it can be done, but that's more of a roadmap item. Today, this is strictly restricted to the HPE portfolio, and that includes HPE storage, HPE Simplivity, HPE servers.
Great. And another question is, will this also show any tiered data to Blob or S3?
That's a good question, actually. Again, not yet. That one I would say is something that is actually on the roadmap, but not right now, no. So what
Thank
we
you.
have is, and I don't want to take this off on a tangent. We can probably set up, if you'd like, a separate conversation about that, but there is a cloud component to Nimble as well, and that's called Nimble Cloud Volumes. And what that does is it gives you the hybrid connectivity that you're looking for, that you're just asking, in terms of being able to monitor and manage your cloud volumes as well, hence the name Nimble Cloud Volumes. So we can, and that's, the reason I say we could probably talk about that at another time is because that's another aspect of this which we can spend probably at least a half hour on. But that is something that is available in the United States. We do have components of it. If Mike is here, he'll be able to elaborate on that in Canada as well. Okay, but that's a good question, and what I would say is let's take that for another session, because I can understand where you're coming from there, and that's where the hybrid connectivity conversation becomes very, very important. Any other questions, Rob? No? Okay.
That's all for now.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. Guys, keep firing up those questions. It helps me in knowing that everyone is this is resonating, right? And the questions coming through. So let's take a look now at the cross-stack stuff, right? So let's go into our VMware component, and let me just show you really quick from our clusters, the VMware clusters. So you can see here, I get cluster information. Inside the cluster information, I get the hosts. What are the actual hosts doing? How are the hosts performing? Host utilization, metrics, etc. Data stores. That's where we start to get into the really interesting stuff of how are my VMs residing inside the data stores, inside the VMDKs. You can see here, what's my utilization numbers, capacity of my data stores, and then I can actually start getting into resolving or looking at recommendations for things like what is my VM latency, right? So what are my top VMs by contention, for instance? So I can actually go in and see, let's open a data store. And you can see under one of those data stores, what's the latency inside that data store? What's the IOPS throughout that data store? Again, what's the throughput? Again, I have the ability to drill down deeper and be able to identify what are these spikes, read-write latency, what's causing these spikes. And then further, I can go and drill even deeper into exactly that point in time to understand what caused, let's say, an unusual spike inside my data store at that point in time. I can relate this back to all of the VMs that are running inside that data store now. And then I can actually create a tree map on what are the VMs by contention, by latency, by what are my hot VMs, what are my cold VMs, and then, that's where we start getting into the recommendations for self-optimization, self-healing that I was talking about earlier. So that's where you're taking that across. You saw how if I painted that picture properly for you, you went all the way up from the hardware into the actual host, and then from the host into the hypervisor, hypervisor into the data store, from the data store all the way up right into your virtual machine. And that's now getting you the full uh, picture of how your environment is performing. Sorry, let me go back to VMs here. Clicked. So here you can see I can create a VM IO contention tree map, VM IO contention trend, memory contention, CPU contention, capacity trend. I have the ability to go into all of those and get my information based on the data stores, right? So here's VM IO and latency grouped by my data store. So I've got 3 data stores here. I can actually see my VMs. Actually, this wasn't a very good one because I didn't pick one which had a lot. We can change the vCenter here to one that has some more VMs. So you can see, yeah, there you go. So those are my arrays, and these are some of the VMs. We're running some pretty large VMs in there, and now you can drill deeper and check on, so you can see your virtual machine latency. It's graphical representation. White is lower latency, red getting hotter and hotter to show you exactly what, which VMs are in having the highest latency. And you can see this one has an average of 56.8 milliseconds versus something like this, which has 1.3 milliseconds of latency, right? So you get VM level contingency group by data store, right? I'm getting all of this information group by data store, and I can drill deeper and deeper. So here you can see these are some of the high IO, high latency VMs, and then you can actually have a trend, and you can map that trend as well. Okay. When it comes to Simplivity, we actually extend this even further. So let me show you the Simplivity component of this. A quick time check. I think we just have just under 15 minutes here. So I'm going to go through a few things quickly for you. Here's the Simplivity. Okay, so HPE Simplivity is fully integrated into InfoSight, and although it is relatively new in its integration, I think it's been just under a year. It's getting smarter and smarter over time with some of that functionality that I just showed you added into it. So my VM level information, my host level information, my storage efficiency. So you can see I'm getting my storage efficiency, utilizing some of the efficiencies of my Simplivity cluster, and I'm getting the actual information on what is the use capacity, what are some of the efficiencies, operational efficiencies that I'm actually getting out of my Simplivity environment. And then if I actually go into my clusters individually, you can see here support. I have a message support contract. So support contract level information for your hosts. That's your OmniStack host. So if the support contract expires on one of my Simplivity hosts, it alerts me here. I can actually have the portal where I can click and go, and it'll take me to the renewal portal immediately. Support case creation can be done automatically from here. I don't need to call in. I don't need to wait on the phone for hours for an agent to call to pick up the phone and then say, okay, I got to transfer you to line 2, blah blah blah. None of that, right? That's that support experience, enhanced support experience that Mike talked about, that is extended to Simplivity as well. I can create support cases directly from here. I get recommendations based on predictive failure right into InfoSight as well. So you get that intelligence, you get the benefits of all of that intelligence in here. Here are my 2 clusters that I'm running, my 2 Simplivity clusters. I can actually go in and look at those clusters, total logical size, and this is where the Simplivity efficiencies start to come in, right? And now I can actually see, which VMs. So here's my virtual machine. How is it being backed up? What are my backups? How much backup space am I utilizing? If you know Simplivity, Simplivity has integrated backup built into it, so I get that information, that level of detail about that virtual machine. How much physical space is my local backup actually accumulating on that? How is my VM performing? I get all of that data as well. So my local backups, you can see here on this VM, how often they're happening, as well as local backup count, how many local backups am I doing, how many remote backups am I doing, and then what is some of that accumulated space that backup is taking, and then what do I need to do to clean it up, for instance, right? So I get that full stack information from here as well, and you can see remote backups, external backups. I get a backup list. I can actually filter it according to however I would need. I can click on the host level information. I get the host. You can see here there's my host that has the expired support contract, and here it has the hypervisor version that it's running, and then you can see the OmniStack related information. And then if I go into the host itself, you'll see I get all the details about the host level performance, drivers, updates required, all of the details about that, right? So that's where you start to get into your host level information and making sure that you're relating that entire environment holistically in terms of being managed end to end, right? So if you see under servers, let me show you really quick, and I don't want to overwhelm you with all the different portals that we have here, but under servers, I get the host level, firmware level, driver level information as well. So, what you're seeing here is an end-to-end platform integrated to show you the operational health as well as the performance level information for your environment. And I think that's what's key here. The best example I can give you of the benefit of running, let's say, HCI with InfoSight and AI integrated into it was I had a customer who actually did who had an issue, a performance issue on one of his VMs, on a few of his VMs, and they were actually, it wasn't as though it was a point in time. It was a consistent level performance issue. So what the customer did was he was trying to figure out where the issue was, and this was prior to having InfoSight integrated into it, and obviously he's trying to look at the actual arrays. He's actually looking at the hypervisor. He's trying to look at the host. You always start with storage. I think that's, as you heard Mike as well, it's pretty easy to blame the storage guys, right? Must be a storage issue, but it
Hey,
really
Gaurav,
is. Yes.
Well, we have a question from the Q&A here. Does it have a daily or weekly reporting feature? Will it send alerts via emails to site admins in case of a Simplivity node failure other than calling home for support ticket creation?
Yes, yes, and yes. Yes to all of those. You can generate reports out of here, right? So there's plenty of reports that you can generate. You can send alerts. You can, yeah, you can set it up however you would need to.
Thank you.
Okay. So that example that I was giving you, so the it really is like looking for a needle in a haystack, right? So what we recommended was you connect your nodes to InfoSite, okay? And once that data from InfoSite starts to flow through, or once that data from whatever your hardware or your architecture platform is starts to flow through, InfoSite now starts to understand what it is managing. And from there, it can actually start making recommendations. So almost within a day after connecting to InfoSite, InfoSite looked at the actual software versions that were running, the firmware and the driver versions. And InfoSite's recommendation that came back was the version of the driver on the NIC of one of the hosts was not compatible with the vCenter version that was running. And the vCenter version and the software version of the Simplivity. And so the recommendation was to roll back that driver version on one of the NICs on one of the hosts, which was causing a huge performance issue. And yeah, I mean, it's a real life example of how what could take you days and days to resolve can be done in hours, right? And that's in hours within the connecting to InfoSite. InfoSite brought that recommendation back. So that was the power, right? And now I could extend that even further. And if we implement and when we implement the autonomous portion of that, there is a fix it button where you could say, there's a recommendation that is coming out of InfoSite. I could click on fix, go ahead and fix it. It'll do the rollback, let's say, by itself, right? And this is why the importance of relating not just cross stack, so not just VM level information, but bringing it down to the hardware to tell you exactly why that performance issue is happening. That's the importance of it, okay? I know we're just 3 minutes under, so I want to leave you with just a couple of things, right? I want to make sure that we've talked about the importance of InfoSite, and I want to make sure that we bring that back to why that matters, right? And why Simplivity and how we deliver that on Simplivity. So if you give me a second here, I'll get that up for you. Where did I put it? Okay, so what we have is, what we've done is as I mentioned, when we look at our HCI portfolio, we have looked at what are some of the virtual workloads that are out there, predictable, unpredictable, some more general purpose, some more business critical, some with higher IO latencies, or some with requirements of lower latencies. Those need to be classified, and the HCI experience need to be delivered across the board. So Simplivity as well as Nimble, DHCI deliver the complete HCI experience, irrespective of which platform you end up going with, right? We recommend different platforms based on your workload and your storage requirements, for instance. But the key here is both of those solutions and that entire HCI portfolio is wrapped around with HPE InfoSite. So now you're getting global intelligence on top of that HCI experience, which is what differentiates that differentiates the HPE HCI portfolio from its competition entirely. Nobody else is able to do that. And as I mentioned, that's taking it from just a day 0, day 1 to day 2 and beyond. You're now getting into app-aware data mobility and global intelligence across the board. And if we combine that with the actual different consumption models that you may have, now you're actually taking it to complete flexibility and automation in how you want to manage your environment. And that's an unbeatable combo. That's something that is industry leading. Nobody in the industry is able to deliver that end-to-end experience. This is where you'll see HCI and AI-powered HCI differentiates you from regular HCI and all the different HCI solutions in the marketplace. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. We're right on the top of the hour here. If there are any more questions, please let me know. But I think we are right about at the end of our webinar here. Anyone have any questions, comments? Trying to see if...
Again, if there are any questions from the group, here at the end, if you want to pop them into the Q&A box, we can ask Gaurav or any of the other members of the HPE team. Obviously, thank you everybody again for your time today. To discuss InfoSight. It's a powerful tool. There's a lot of questions, obviously around it, expanding it to other platforms. So it's obvious that the messaging has resonated. So if you have any further questions or want to get into a deeper dive about it, you have Dan Palmer, who's your HPE account representative, or you have Masood Garbier from CDW, who's responsible for the Magna CDW relationship. So feel free to reach out to your account team, and we'll be happy to have a further in-depth conversation around InfoSight, around HPE technology. Thanks again to Mike and Gaurav from the HPE teams. A big thank you from the CDW team as well for your time today. We really appreciate it.